Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday evening, June 2nd, 2025. This is a regular meeting of the Gorham Planning Board. Would you please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag? Thank you. Mrs. Iman, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Hager.
Here.
Mr. Benson.
Here.
Mr. Delaney.
Here.
Ms. Nichols.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have two excused absences. Mr. Frank and Mr. Crucifulli are absent this evening.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in your packet, we have approval of the minutes from the May 5th, 2025 meeting. I look to our secretary. Were there any edits, comments, or additions, changes, etc.?
I did not have any corrections or changes to the minutes. They look good to me.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No. Mr. Chair,
Please.
may I make
Mr. Walsh?
a motion that we accept the planning board meeting minutes of May 5th, 2025 as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Colonel Benson. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Moving along, item 3, reports. Chairman's report. We have a busy night, full schedule. We're going to try and go as quickly as we can, making sure everyone has been given its due diligence. Committee reports. Ordinance review, Mr. Walsh.
The ordinance committee has not met since the last meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Frank would report that the Comprehensive Plan and Implementation Committee has not met. Thank you. Administrative review.
There have been no meetings of the Administrative Review Committee since the previous Planning Board meeting, and none are scheduled.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 8 items on our agenda this evening. Item 1 is a public hearing. Site plan subdivision amendment, National Attachments, Old Canal Business Park. A request for approval to construct a 9,800 square foot storage building with associated infrastructure. The property is located at 29 Old Canal Way on map 34, lot 3.002, zoned Old Canal Industrial. Represented by Chris Taylor, PE of Sebago Techniques. Would someone from planning like to?
Mr. Chair, we had discussed a request from the school department to take that item out of order. We're not doing that. Is that the?
We're going to look at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
As a.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I know the importance. Please, I do.
I'll go ahead. Yep. So this is the second time this item has come before the Planning Board. So it came before the board for a sketch plan review in April of this year, and now it's before the board for subdivision and site plan amendment. The applicants are looking to construct a 9,600 square foot commercial building with associated infrastructure. It's within the Old Canal Industrial Zoning District. The use is consistent with the zoning and comprehensive plan. They are looking to do a subdivision amendment because they need to increase the amount of disturbed area and impervious surface beyond what's allowed in the existing industrial subdivision plan that's approved. So one update, since this memo was written, they have got an ability to serve letter from Portland Water District, so that was one of the outstanding items. They've now received that. So we're looking for some additional information to be provided, some relatively, I would say, minor technical changes. So information regarding movement of emergency vehicles on site should be provided. Some additional information about underground utility locations, post-construction stormwater management information, and some other technical comments regarding stormwater conveyances. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Damon. Mr. Taylor, would you like to present?
Thank you. My name is Chris Taylor with Sebago Technics, professional engineer representing the applicant National Attachments in Scotty Mon. The layout in the building presented to you tonight is the same as we had presented back in March at the sketch plan. Same location, same size, same kind of pavement and access to it. And what we've done is submitted the official, full plan set for site plan review, amended site plan review, and amended subdivision application. We included, stormwater details, traffic memorandum showing number of trips generated from this, landscaping and lighting details. Just to run down pretty quick, we are requesting the amendment to the subdivision strictly because of an increase in the impervious area. We're going above what was previously allowed on this lot. And to treat that additional impervious area, we're proposing a roof drip edge filter and 2 focal point biofilters to treat the additional impervious area that's created from this above what was previously allowed on the lot. The past approval, the subdivision approval allowed for 1.58 acres of impervious area. We're requesting that to go up to 1.85 acres of impervious area. We're also proposing 1.58 acres of impervious area, so we're not asking for more than what's being proposed. So we're kind of, anything in addition to this would have to come back again before the board to increase that. Traffic for the site, there's a memo included in the application, but just quickly, based on ITE, this would increase the number of vehicle trips by 48 for a weekday, and that includes 9 in the AM peak hour and 8 in the AM and PM peak hour. For the whole subdivision, it remains under the 100 trip count for either peak hour, so that no DOT permitting is required for this addition. And as Damon noted, we did get a change of use from Portland Water District, and I do have some turning exhibits with me if the board is interested in seeing how the trucks maneuver through the site. This is an existing site that's been in use, so trucks are able to move around, emergency vehicles are able to get around the existing building. We're kind of bumping off to one side, but I have some exhibits if the board is interested to see some of the backing maneuvers, turning maneuvers, that sort of thing. And I guess with that, I'm available for any questions you have.
Any questions, Mr. Taylor? Thank you. As previously mentioned, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to ask the public now if there's anyone in the public that would like to address this in favor of this project. I would ask you to please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Going once. Again, anyone that is in favor of this project, I would like you to approach the podium.
Good evening. My name is Scott Guimond. I own the property, I own the company, and I am in favor of the project. That's it. Any questions for me while I'm right here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Guimond. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Guimond before I let him go? Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if there was anyone that would like to speak against this project, please go to the podium, state your name for the record and your address. Again, anyone that is against this project? I see no one rising. And the third option is anyone that would like to speak about this project, one way or the other. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Absolutely no one. I will close the public hearing. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Taylor?
So,
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, I just want to clarify with staff as to what Mr. Taylor said. So the issue that was brought up in the notes regarding the impervious surface and the amount of subdivision plan maximum development area, that has all been resolved at this point.
Mr. Walsh, what page, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Page 4 of 22.
Thank you.
Planning department, there's a couple bullets in the center there. Second black bullet, and then there's three sub-bullets. Talked about the proposed development exceeds the allocated impervious surface coverage, blah, blah.
Yeah, so what that basically is the purpose of the amendment, is
All right.
to increase those amounts.
Okay, so that's all we saw. All right. Those were my only questions
Throughout the entire document?
for the, I mean, there was,
We can
the
go
only
page-
other one I have is there is a lot of yellow, but Damon, you mentioned that there were a lot of small issues. So my question is the amount of yellow highlight enough that you feel comfortable approving that with conditions?
Yeah, I'd say that the yellow reflects relatively minor issues that can be addressed as a condition of approval. That would fall under the usual condition of approval number 3. Any staff and peer review comments shall be addressed prior to the board signing the plans.
All right. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Colonel?
Yeah, I just have under conditions of approval, this is more of maybe an administrative question. 12 and 15 seem repetitive. There's additional language at the bottom of 15, but otherwise they're the same condition. These are the conditions of approval on page 21. And then 13 and 16 also are redundant unless I'm missing something.
Which would make 17 now 16 and 18 now 17.
Correct.
That's from combining up the subdivision.
Yeah, I just
site
want to
plan
make sure
and-
that I wasn't confusing something on my end where there was language that was missing or,
Did you catch that?
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
other than that, I don't have any questions and
Thank you,
prepared to.
Colonel. Ms. Nichols?
I'm all good.
Mr. Delaney, unfortunately, I do have a few. On page 5, please. At the bottom of page 5, the application indicates the parcel is not located within the Town of Gorham MS4 area. However, according to the town's map public viewer, the parcel is located within the regulated MS4. Is that a true statement? Is that? This is not a general incompleteness. Apparently,
We'd have to chat with Wright Pierce.
Okay.
This is in their review
That's correct.
memo.
That's correct.
And so when they looked at the map, either that or
I believe they were looking at the applicant's original document.
And just for everyone's edification, the MS4 area is what?
That's the regulated area for stormwater covered by the Clean Water Act.
Thank
And Chuck and I were just comparing some notes here. We did discuss this with the town stormwater coordinator, and it is within the MS4 area. So that is something, I apologize for the inconsistency there.
No apologies necessary. We want to find these errors now.
Yep, so it is within, they will need to have a post-construction stormwater plan.
I assume you will
we're-
meet with the planning
yes.
department afterwards, after this review.
Yeah, it was probably an oversight on our end, and.
No worries, no worries. We want to find these errors now. Page 7 of 22, randomly, item 4B, a sewer connection detail was not included in the plans. I'm assuming there will be one at some point.
Yes, there will be.
Thank you. Again, we mentioned lots of yellow, page 10, page 11. Since we're asking questions, bottom of page 10, non-residential projects will provide a clear route for delivery vehicles with appropriate geometric design to allow turning and backing for WD-40 vehicles. I'm assuming that's not WD-40, it's WB. So you want to educate me, please? What is WB-40? If we know. If we don't know, that's fine too.
I believe the engineers pulled it up on the plan.
Intermediate trails. Thank you.
And this is the loop that vehicle can make through the site, showing access. So starting here on Old Canal,
Yep.
making a right, doing a loop around the existing building.
Yep, great, thank you, thank you. As you mentioned on page 12, the ability to serve letter was issued by Portland Water District. That's good to know. Page 14 of 22, please. The applicant has submitted a letter from James Percodolis, Vice President of Commercial Lending at Bath Savings Institution, dated March 12, 2025, which identifies there is financial capacity to complete the project. I'm not picking on this project, but when we have a statement like this that is 4 or 5 months prior, is there a bond posted? I mean, couldn't an applicant pull the money at the last minute without us knowing it, even though this vice president, and I don't mean to pick on this, Mr. Guimond, by no stretch, I don't mean that. It's just a general comment. Do we know that? We don't know.
Yes, in fact, that could happen.
I think that's always the case.
I just happened to pick on it. I didn't mean to pick on you.
I don't need the bank to pay for it. I just got you that letter because I was told that I needed to provide
Sure.
some sort of letter.
Sure. Thank you. Understood. Yep. Going as quickly as I can. And we already talked about page 21 of 22. That's all I had, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a
Please,
motion.
please.
Move to grant site plan and subdivision approval for National Attachments, request to construct a 9,600 square foot commercial building located at map 34, lot 3-2 in Old Canal Industrial District, based on finding of fact and conditions of approval as written by the town planner.
Have a second, please.
And Dave Walsh, second.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I will vote. The screen's black, but I suspect we're still being broadcast. There we go.
We're back.
I will vote in favor of this. I'd like to do a survey of everyone.
Absolutely.
Have any questions, concerns?
Good project.
Motion was seconded. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 2, please. Item 2, public hearing, site plan, subdivision amendment, Stargazer subdivision. A request for approval to combine 6 existing residential lots into condominiums and mixed commercial and residential uses. The property is located off County Road on map 3, lot 22.502 to 507, zone contract zone and South Gorham Crossroads. The applicant is represented by Norman G. Chamberlain II, PE of Walsh Engineering Associates Incorporated. Would someone from the planning department like to kick this off, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The applicant has been before the board in 2020 to review and discuss the contract zone amendment. There's been a couple of amendments for the contract zone here. The amendment was approved by the town council in 2020. The applicant was also before the planning board in 2021 for preliminary subdivision, private way, and site plan approval. Preliminary approval was granted at that time. The applicant was also before the board in 2022 for final approvals, at which time it was tabled pending further information and additional information submitted. This is the second time the project has come before the planning board with a submission for preliminary approval. In addition to the contract zone and the South Gorham Commercial Corridor, it has an overlay zoning district of pedestrian overlay and affordable housing overlay. Items of note, the condominium association and easement deed documents need to be reviewed by the third-party reviewer. We have given them to that person, and we are awaiting their review comments. The traffic impact submission also needs to be reviewed by our traffic engineer. That is pending as well. Lighting details and a photometric analysis that adhere to section 128, which is the zoning ordinance performance standards. That needs to be submitted. It's very specific as to what needs to be included on that plan. And then we also need building and elevations. I could not locate those within the submission. Sometimes it's a little difficult when there's no dividers between things, so although I searched, I couldn't find anything in there. The utilities are required to be underground. That can be found in section 2-10A. A modified traffic movement permit may be required as a generator approaches the 100-trip threshold, and we'll look for additional comment from the applicant this evening about that piece of things. The development is located, again, within the pedestrian overlay, so that requires off-site sidewalk connections. And because of the distance to the nearest existing off-site sidewalk, the applicant may want to request a waiver, or which is also to pay the in lieu fee. We need some more discussion as to the contract zone agreement, what that looks like, and what was required originally. So that would be helpful as well. There's a requirement now in the South Gorham Commercial Corridor Zone for blocks. And those, this area, it has been developed from the same developer and is a phased project. So a look at the entire project over time may in fact be consistent with the block requirements of this section, section 1-2511. That's something the applicant could sort of add to the story for you if you would like him to. And with that, I turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Harmon. Mr. Chamberlain.
Good evening. Norm Chamberlain with Walsh Engineering, representing Hans Hansen Incorporated, the developer. So what I've got up on the screen is the existing subdivision. What we are proposing to do is take these 7 lots that are outlined in red and turn them into one lot, lot 2 of the subdivision, and then we're going to create 4 separate units within that that area for this development. So that would be these shaded areas here. We've got a 7-unit development here, a commercial unit with 2 residential units on this lot, commercial unit with 1 residential unit on this lot, and then 5 units down at the end. I wanted to point out on this plan that we do have this 100-foot buffer all along there and down in here, and that's going to remain in this as part of this development plan. One of the reasons that we have taken so long to get to this point is we just got our DEP permit back in late April, so we needed that for a final review and approval. Looking at the staff comments, as Carol said, we're in the South Gorham Commercial Corridor District. We're currently evaluating whether we want to be reviewed under those requirements or the contract zone. There may be some benefit to switching that out. I'm not really sure how we would do that with this review because we have to go to council for that. But we'd like to keep things moving, so I think we want to proceed with preliminary, at least on this one. Both residential driveways will need to be reviewed as private ways. The one for the 7-unit is a little higher standard, but we meet the size requirements for both of those. We have submitted the condo documents. I dropped off copies to Damon a few minutes ago. We had Sewell prepare a traffic analysis, and they submitted this data to MDOT, and we got a letter back from them saying that the 7-unit and 5-unit residential developments do not kick us into a traffic movement permit. That would keep us under the 100 PCEs for the entire development. We may be able to get one of the commercial developments under that, but we don't know what that would be, so we really can't count it. So what we're looking for is approval for the residential units, and we're going to have to come back to the board for the site plan approval on these 2 commercial units. Building elevations, we apologize for not including that in the package. These are I wrote it down, and 1,489 square foot buildings. We have some elevation views. They're single story, designed for 55 plus. Each unit has a garage. That's it from the other two sides. So they're pretty small units and meet the requirements of the current contract zone. As Carol said, we're in the pedestrian overlay district. We've added sidewalks to all of our, we'll have sidewalks all along Blue Ledge Road. We'll have sidewalks within each residential unit. We don't know where the sidewalks would go to other than county roads, so we'd like to entertain a waiver or in lieu fee or something for the off-site work. I don't think there's anything within thousands of feet of here for sidewalks. The Section 125 block standards, I think we can look at that as, so Blue Ledge Road comes up here, and then there's, I think that's called South Gorham Crossing Road, comes down through the parking lot of First Light and down by the daycare and out to County Road. And that kind of creates the block set up as best we can on that side, and we don't really have room on our side of Blue Ledge Road to do any more road creation and create blocks. So I think we've met that standard as best we can given the outline of the property. Last thing is we need to discuss private way access with staff and the fire department. There was a comment about us accessing the hammerheads with the driveways. Just to note, this is the same plan that was approved a couple of years ago. So that's pretty much all I have. Entertain any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Chamberlain? Ms. Nichols, please.
Just on the map that you have up right now, that, I apologize, I have borrowed glasses on tonight.
I can
so
zoom
I'm
in
trying
here if you
read
need to.
it. The road, I'm looking at the connectivity. So is that going to actually connect with Blue Ledge Road?
Yeah, so here's the road right here. It goes through the parking lot and then back out to County Road. So that road exists, as does Blue Ledge.
Okay. We still have, right, but it does have some connectivity as far
Yes.
as if something had to go around, but we still have the dead ends.
We still have a dead end here and a dead end there, yes.
And I could see the back end, especially with the wetlands there.
Yeah, we have some wetlands. There's a fire pond back there, and there's some wells that preclude some of the development in the back corner here. This part of the development is all done. I don't think there's anything else they can add in there.
Ms. Nichols?
No, I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the roads, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, this is a public hearing, so ladies and gentlemen, if there's anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Again, anyone in favor of this, who wants to speak to this project, ladies and gentlemen, if there is anyone that would speak against this project, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Anyone against this project? And lastly, if there is anyone that would like to address this project either way, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. I will close the public hearing. Members of the board, Colonel, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to acknowledge we did receive at least one letter of correspondence from the public, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. They were residents of Burnham Road, and they had consideration or concern about the buffer zone still being intact, and which I see that it is on the plan. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we received that. I guess maybe for the staff, there was some conversation during the presentation about the benefits to the developer on contract zone versus South Gorham Crossing. If that's still an issue, it seems to me like very difficult for me to vote on this tonight if there's still some consideration that they're going to go back and forth on that as an issue. So I'm looking to the staff on that for a recommendation.
They could go concurrently through this approval process and the contract zone removal process. It would not hurt either one. If you were to approve this preliminary plan with the condition that they go through that process, if they would like to, that's an option.
How does one versus the other affect this in a material way that we have to consider this evening?
They are nearly identical. What we did when we created the South Gorham districts, specifically the commercial district, is to make the underlying zoning or the regular zoning, if you will, nearly identical with all of the contract zones, save for one use that somebody has in their contract. That is not this contract zone. That's a different one. We haven't seen it at all yet come in.
Okay.
So the uses are nearly identical. The performance standards are nearly identical.
So maybe then, to Mr. Chamberlain, you mentioned it, so what would be the benefit?
We're more interested in moving this project along because it's been,
Sure.
open for so long. So we'd like to continue. We're looking at some of the requirements. Our initial review of that ordinance, that zone, is that we meet all those requirements. So I think, I'm not really sure, but I'd like to keep going, and we're going to explore some of those questions. I think the biggest concern we have is the access to the hammerhead and the layout of the site, because this has been the layout ever since we were before the council with the contract zone. So to me, it's more important that we get this layout, because we really can't change some of the stuff to move those driveways off of the hammerhead.
Okay.
So I just haven't had a chance to talk to the chief about it.
So
We'd like to continue under the contract zone,
Okay.
but if it becomes clear that we can still do what we want to do under the South Gorham Crossing zone, we'll go through the process with the council, and I guess we'd have to come back to say, hey, we switched from this to that.
And that's
We understand that.
There's no problem with that?
There wouldn't be.
Okay.
We just did that recently.
Okay, thank you. And then the second part, if I understood you correctly, that you're seeking approval for the residential portion of this plan, but not for the commercial portion.
We want to create the 4 units, but we don't have a use for either the 2 commercial lots, and those would have to come back for site plan approval based on the use and traffic and all that stuff is what I propose here.
So again, if we're going to consider this under the contract zone, I don't know how, help me figure out how we approve this with only 2/3 or half of the consideration, and then say, oh, we'll do the rest of the traffic later. Well, the rest of the traffic might impact my decision on the approval of the residential portion of it. So what am I missing? it seems like this is an incomplete plan if they've said, hey, we're going to do these things and now we're not going to do the commercial, which was part of the original plan. And if we do it, then we'll go back and redo the traffic study, but we've already approved the residential, and that doesn't seem like the best way to go forward for me.
It is the same as what you just approved for Old Canal. Old Canal was approved as an entire subdivision. One lot at a time was approved under site plan approval. Each time you come in, the next person adds to the traffic count. The last person in the door is the unfortunate soul that needs to deal with the total traffic count. So in this case, it's a exact similar situation. You approve the entire plan, everybody moves forward in the time frame that they're able to. The last person through the door needs to deal with the traffic count.
I understand, but I wasn't part of the original contract zone discussion, and that's why I'm asking the questions. But it seems to me the contract zone was approved to be mixed, to be commercial and residential. And now we're saying, well, we're going to go forward with the residential, but we don't know if we're ever going to do the commercial.
That could be the
We're not
case
saying we don't
everywhere.
know if we'll ever do it. We just don't have anyone interested in buying those lots. We have someone that's interested in buying
I see.
12 residential lots.
So someone else is actually developing those, or you're?
Yes, Mr. Thornton is here as the developer of those 2 lots. He's going to buy those.
I understand. Okay.
So we're trying to get, this, it is just a subdivision, what we're doing here. And we know what we're going to do on 2 of those. We don't know what we're going to do on the other 2.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. What we're looking at here, drawing 01, is an overall site plan, a proposal.
Yes.
Could you please segue to sheet C 2.1?
Where did I? Sorry, I didn't have that called up.
If that it.
Look at that.
Thank you.
Right up
So
to
this is what we're looking at tonight, site plan.
Right.
So so as to confuse, it was a huge site plan, this is what we might do, but this is what is in the application this evening. Did you confirm?
Yes.
Thank you. Does that make it a little less?
Right.
Thank you.
Because the final plan approval will come through for each section of
Correct.
this.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
The more I listen to this, the more I'm confused. So we're looking at this as as a residential development or as a residential/commercial development?
Tonight residential condominium.
It's residential, commercial development,
All
yes.
right. But in the lots 4 and 5, those could end up being entirely residential. Is that what I'm hearing?
These 2 lots here, this one and this one, let's see if I can- these 2 lots, those would be commercial, and that's required under the contract zone, and I believe it would be required under the underlying zoning district.
But you want to move forward with the residential portion, although at some point those need to build.
Yes, so the residential fits within the traffic counts that we have, and we don't have to do a traffic movement permit. So that's why we're kind of pointing out those 12 houses as these can go ahead. We're saying that if we get a tenant for the commercial development, we'll have to come back and do the traffic and do the site plan review.
But we're still approving the commercial sites?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. As part
As
of it,
lots with, yes.
because it's consistent with the contract zone.
That helps. Thank you for that.
All right. But could you come back at a future, could they come back at a future time and say, we only want to do residential?
Only if they change the zoning.
And the contract zone?
and the contract zone.
All right, okay. So, and is this subject to the growth ordinance?
No, because it's a mixed-use development.
Aha, but they're not going ahead with the commercial, so isn't that an end run around it?
We'll have to ask for a legal opinion on this because this is part of a larger development. This is a phased project, and the items next door to it are commercial.
Yeah, everything we've done so far has been commercial. This is
Sure.
the first residential piece.
Okay, so those count into this?
Northern Light and Cumberland Farms and the daycare were part of this development.
Right, but as far as our current growth ordinance in the exception that one can get residential permits without, as long as there's a commercial aspect to it and circumvent the growth ordinance, does that apply in arrears in this situation? Would this apply to the Cumberland Farms that haven't already been built?
We will get a legal opinion.
Yeah, okay, that would be helpful.
So this subdivision was originally, this portion of the subdivision was originally six individual single-family lots. And in the last 20 years, 15 years, that they haven't sold.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just bringing up more questions for me now. So
I know.
was the original contract zone included the Northern Light Health and the
Yep.
Cumberland? So that was all part of this contract zone?
Right, that was the commercial piece, and then we had
Okay.
the 6 residential, single families as the residential
'Cause
piece.
Not knowing that background, looking at this picture, it looks like that's not part of the contract zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was. So essentially Cumberland Farms and Northern Light are Lot 1 and the daycare. And there's actually what we call the bank lot, which is that property on County Road next to Cumberland Farms on the other side of the South Gorham Crossing Road. And that's still available for development and has some specific requirements under the contract zone for drive-through and landscaping and things
So
like
do
that.
you have any graphic available that shows the whole contract zone?
Just, this plane here, so this is Lot 1 over here, and that was all part of the contract zone.
Okay.
And it was it was originally part of a contract zone, and then it was amended in 2020 to change the 6 residential
Okay.
lots to what we're looking at now.
Got it. Thank you. That's very helpful.
On the back of the contract zone document. Mr. Chair, I guess not knowing what the attorney's opinion on the application of the growth ordinance to this one makes it difficult for me to make a decision as to whether to approve. I feel like it's kind of a missing part. I mean, it looks like otherwise everything else, house may be in order, but that is a question.
Well, I guess from my understanding, what was just discussed,
Does 55,
originally there were more residential,
Yeah.
and now there are fewer. So if it was approved as a mixed use, they've already built commercial as part of the contract zone with more residential.
Right.
And now that residential's gone away, so it seems like it would be less.
the contract zone also required the residential to be over 55, which is what we're doing. I don't know if that gets us out of the requirement.
Can the growth ordinance issue be related to terms, conditions, or of approval? When you get that answer, rather than have this be delayed?
If it would satisfy Mr. Walsh's question adequately.
Well, what's the fallback? If they say the growth ordinance applies, then what? What does it mean? And the commercial isn't there, then they have to spread it out over a couple of years, over 2 years probably, right?
It would be up to the applicant.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess if at that point they're willing to do that.
Yeah, I will say there is an exemption to the growth ordinance for 55 plus.
All right,
So,
all right. So they have that as well.
I guess it's also worth mentioning, there's a bill in the legislature that would remove the ability for municipalities to impose a growth ordinance within their growth area, which this is within the growth area.
Sure, but that hasn't happened yet, so.
Of course.
It is not, but it is something,
Yeah.
food for thought, I suppose.
Okay,
Sure, you did say this was a 55 and over.
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
So, okay, great.
and, all right. Yeah, that kind of, I'll put my concern aside then. There's two possible exemptions.
Members of the board. Colonel.
As far as preliminary subdivision approval, I mean, that seems to meet the requirements and answer the questions. So I'm ready to move. A vote.
Yep.
You have a motion?
To grant Hans and Hansen Incorporated request for preliminary subdivision and site plan approval for a single-family and mixed-use condominium project located at 11.48 acres off Blue Ledge Road on single-family and mixed-use, on map 3, lots 502, 503, 504, 505, 506, 507, in a contract zone with underlying zoning of the South Gorham Commercial Corridor based on the findings of fact as written by the town planner.
Well done.
Is there a second?
Second, Dave Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Well, we're going round and round and around and around. Is everyone clear on where we are?
Yep.
I will vote to approve. Everyone else? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How are we doing, everyone? Ladies and gentlemen, item 3 is a public hearing, site plan subdivision Makeup Builders, Narragansett Reserve Estates. Request for approval to construct a 102-unit condominium community for residents 55 and older. The property is located off Newton Drive on map 8, lot 10, zone South Gorham Crossroads. The applicant is represented by Andrew Morrow, PE of BH Swim. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to request that you vote to remove me, allow me to recuse myself, as I live on Newton Drive, and I don't want to be participating in this.
I don't think we have to vote.
Let's do it for the record.
We'd like to do it for the record? Sure. All right. All approve?
I approve.
Approved.
Thank you, Colonel.
Sure. Staff, can you please give us the background?
Certainly, Mr. Vice Chair. So, under the current, this proposal for development at the site's been before the board twice under the current development team for sketch plan review. In addition, the board did a site walk in September 2023. So the applicant's now back before the board with updates to the plan. They're looking for preliminary subdivision and site plan approval for the project, which is to include 102 units of triplex condominium units to be a deed restricted 55 plus community. They're proposing that the development be served by public water and on-site septic. So in our review, we've identified several outstanding materials and questions, issues for the board to go over with the applicant. There's a number of them, just to pick out some of the highlights here. So one thing to bear in mind is that there is another development proposing to run public water down Brackett Road. We suggest that the developer of this site coordinate with the developer of the other site, which is at the former Gorham Country Club, because the routing of public water and or public sewer would be through the same right of way. The DEP permits will be required for this development. The applicant did not provide site plan documents. We'll need those for the review. The underlying zoning requires that if the development is phased, there be a master plan. So something that we'd encourage the board to discuss with the applicant is phasing and sort of the trajectory of the development. And if they are going to phase it, then they should submit a master plan. Several other items, pedestrian accommodations will be required within the pedestrian overlay zone. We'd encourage the developer to provide information about improvements to Newton Drive and Shirley Lane. They'll need to submit a Class A soil survey, nitrate plume analysis, if they're going to provide on-site septic, a photometric plan, landscaping plan, information on solid waste management, grading utility plan, information regarding known historic sites, and several additional staff and peer review engineering comments that need to be addressed. So with that, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morrow.
Good evening. Andy Morrow, BH2M, civil engineer, here representing Maka Builders. The developers are here as well if you guys need any information from them. Damon did a good job introducing the project, so I'll try to be brief here. I know you've got a long agenda tonight. 38, roughly 39-acre parcel. It's basically the remaining land of the Hemlock Ridge subdivision from 1987. As the board knows, this parcel was rezoned to the South Gorham Crossroads. We'd worked with the board on a handful of kind of sketch plans and different iterations of this project over the last couple years. Since you guys have seen us, we've moved forward with the design, done a lot of work to get where we are. The site layout has not changed significantly since you saw it. The road layout is pretty similar to what you guys saw the last time we were before you guys. I believe we had 108 units the last time we saw you guys. We've kind of whittled that down to 102 to accommodate some septic systems and some stormwater. As Damon said, we're looking at 34 triplex buildings, 102 total units, 55 plus community. Some other aspects of the projects, as we've discussed with the board, we've proposed a public road for both the extension of Newton Drive and Shirley Lane. So kind of the internal horseshoe, if you will kind of connect and be a public road. That's roughly 2,200 linear feet of public road. The remainder of the roads will be private access drives, owned and maintained by the condo association. Those are approximately 2,800 linear feet of access drives. A total of just under a mile of road is proposed as part of this project. The zoning requirements require a blocked configuration, so this is why we've kind of laid out the site as we have, kind of in blocks to meet those requirements. As Damon said, we are proposing to extend public water. It's just over a mile of an extension from the Black Brook subdivision on Brackett Road, coming down Brackett Road and then down Newton Drive, about 5,400 linear feet of public water extension. We have currently proposed subsurface wastewater disposal systems. We've proposed one system per building, so 34 total systems. Stormwater is collected in a closed drainage system. We have sidewalk throughout the entire internal portions of the project, so we have curbing, catch basins, all directing stormwater to 4 vegetated soil filters and 2 wet ponds. As Damon mentioned, this project is subject to DEP approval. Our intent after we get some initial input from the board is to go to the DEP and start that process. We understand we need to have that permit in hand before we can come before you for final, so that's our intent. But we're looking to kind of get your initial input tonight, come back with some revisions and get submitted to the DEP. So that's kind of the thought process we're thinking on this project. We did have a meeting with staff last week. It was very productive. Some issues that were brought up. off-site sidewalks. We're going to work with the town to kind of have that discussion on what the options are of paying a fee or constructing sidewalks. This is a similar situation to many other projects, right? There's no real existing sidewalk anywhere close, so we need to kind of work through those details. Public Works at the PRC meeting had mentioned that they wanted some improvements to both Newton and Shirley after this project was constructed. We will certainly talk to Terry and have a discussion with what kind of improvements he's looking for, and any plans we have coming forward, we'll be sure to show those on the plan. So we'll have a discussion with Terry and report back to you on that. One item that came up was the intersection of Newton and Shirley, about here. We had shown a little hammerhead turnaround there. The fire chief had asked us to kind of eliminate that little turnaround. We will certainly do that moving forward. We're in the process of working with the water district on the water main extension. We certainly, as Damon recommended, will talk to the developer of the other project and have a conversation. I believe the applicants have already had a conversation, but we will certainly do that again. There was also some discussion about how this is a 55 and older project, how that would impact the middle school impact fees. That's something I think staff is going to track down and get an answer to us on. So we understand there's some items that Damon mentioned that need to be provided. Our intent is to certainly provide those to you guys as we move forward. We're here tonight to just kind of introduce the project, start the discussion about a preliminary subdivision. We understand this is a big project and there's a lot of things to go through. So as I said, our intent is to get your comments tonight, make some revisions, make another submission to you guys, come back for a preliminary subdivision and get submitted to the DEP and kind of get that process started. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it back to you and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So you're not looking for preliminary approval tonight?
No.
Okay. I appreciate that. That helps.
No, we understand there's a lot of
Yeah.
work that needs to be done, and I mean, seldomly does a project of this size get approved in one meeting. So we understand this is a process, and we're here to get your input, get some input from the abutters, and then do some homework and come back to you guys.
Thank you. Well, before we address questions, this is a public hearing, so I'd like to ask
Sure.
get a chance to hear from the public. Just to remind you, please come forward, when called, state your name and address. Address the board and not the audience, please. And we encourage you to ask questions. We might not answer your questions directly, but we'll certainly listen, and then the board will have an opportunity to answer any of the questions during the discussion of the board. So with that, anyone who is in favor of the project, I would like to call forward. Seeing none, anyone opposed who would like to speak in opposition to the project, please come forward.
Good evening. Richard Foley, 14 Newton Drive, here in Gorham.
Thank you.
This is quite a handout tonight, 27 pages, double-sided. I note that there's quite a few bullet points on here of items that have not been met by the applicant. And that almost makes it seem like it really isn't ripe to be ready to come here if you've got so many things that haven't been addressed or need to be addressed. There was a site review. I recognize too many of the people up here on the board, so many of you may not have made the actual site walk up there. The area is, to say the least, ledgy. To say the most, there isn't any dirt. So to put a septic system up there that, if anyone here remembers what happened in Southwoods years ago with the great septic system debacle, then keep that in mind as this project moves forward, because there is a saying about what does flow downhill, and I do live downhill from where this septic system could fail and end up traveling. The the fact that a Class A soil system can be set aside by you in favor of other processes, I don't think is right. I think this thing needs to have a proper soils analysis done to it, with including proper test pits and designs that aren't going to allow things to run downhill. There were some interesting comments or points taken about the potential for traffic involvement. And it was in two different places, there's two different sets of information here. On one of the pages, they cites the 65-unit subdivision, but now we're talking 102. I'm wondering if maybe the numbers are reflecting at 45 cars in the morning are reflecting that 65 and not the 102. Then again, you know, if there's a magic number in there where the DOT has to come in and do a study, it's advantageous to keep that number down for obvious reasons. But we need to understand if you're going to have 102 units, we'll just round it up and down and call it 100 units in there. I think most everybody around these days has at least two vehicles because both people in the house need to have a car. How an estimate of 45 vehicles traveling down Newton Drive in the morning and then 53 go home, those cars must have multiplied while they were out to get the 53 to come back. Obviously, there were other vehicles that left during the course of the day. So you're going to have to take into consideration that there's going to be more than that 45. Currently, on a dead-end street, there's about 12 or 15 vehicles every morning right now coming and going up and down that hill. And that's only on the Newton Drive side. I can't speak to Louise Street and Shirley up at the other corner because I don't live up there and don't see it. But we've got quite a bit of traffic on that street already. It might come down to the fact that there's going to have to be a traffic light at the intersection of Newton at Longfellow. And I'm sure nobody really wants to see a roundy round anymore. Those are just not so good to have to get through. So I think the traffic study really needs to be done properly and not an estimate. Estimates are fine if it's next to somebody else's house. It's not okay if it's next to my house. And that's purely the way this should be handled.
Mr. Foley, just please, you got about a minute left.
Okay.
We got
All right.
time. We got others we need to allow to speak.
So I would like to just finish this up then by asking the council to remember that you're up there to protect us, not the developer. The onus is on you to protect the people who live in developments, to make sure that their wells don't get polluted and that there isn't effluent coming down over the hill. There are two brooks that bisect and come out of that area that cross Louise Street. And then they further go down, and I think they make their way into the Stroutwater eventually. So the onus really is on you to make sure that the people who are there aren't the ones who lose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Is there anyone else who has comments in opposition of the project?
Richard Blake, 27 Newton Drive. I just want to reiterate what we already heard. We've seen multitude of plans come through. One time it was like 10 or 12 houses. They had trouble finding test pits for 10 or 12 houses. Dick mentioned that if any of you went on that sidewalk, 90% ledge, you can hardly stick a shovel in the ground. So just make sure whatever they do is done right, that they can adequately take care of the septic. And Shirley Lane and Newton Drive were designed in the 60s, the late 60s. What nobody mentioned just slightly here, that you're going to have to widen the roads out, because when two cars meet now, somebody has to stop almost to get by, and there's going to be a lot more passing with 102 people up there, 204 cars perhaps. So do the septic right, the water has to be done for sure, and give us adequate roads. That's all I can ask for. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Reminder, this is a public hearing. Are there any other comments opposing this project? Are there any speakers who would like to speak for the project? In favor of the project? Is there anyone who would like to speak neither for or against the project? Last call. Public hearing is now closed. I'd like to open it up to Mr. Moore, I'd like to invite you back to the podium and open this up to the board. Dave. Mr. Walsh?
Okay, yeah. So Andy, I appreciate the fact that you're not looking for preliminary approval tonight, because there are too many outstanding issues. I'm glad you recognize that. So just, I'm going to give you my list.
Yes.
Some things that I'd like to see more of. I think, we've just heard some good comments from some of the neighbors.
Sure did.
Can't reinforce that enough about the septic. And that, yes, I remember from the site walk, there is a lot of ledge up in that area. So in future, I would like to learn more about how the septic will work in that area. So if you can help us with that.
Happy to.
Also, I had some questions, really no priorities. Overflow parking, I don't see anything indicated on your site plan for overflow parking that you typically might find in a clustered subdivision like this.
Yeah, we haven't put anything on for that. Each unit has a garage, and each unit has enough room for at least a car, or some of them have enough room for 2 cars in the driveway. I can talk to the applicant and see if they feel like some kind of overflow parking is needed somewhere, and take a look at that.
Okay. Next up is an issue we've heard a lot about, is what will happen with Shirley and Newton, and what upgrades or changes need to be made. It'd be interesting to hear what Terry has to say.
Yes.
But certainly that's probably something to happen. Thinking about the fact of what it's saying is cars right now have trouble meeting each other. Add snow to the street, narrows it up even harder.
Yep.
Sidewalks. You're going to have sidewalks within the subdivision.
Yes.
But you're still trying to figure out what you do outside of it.
Yeah, we're in the sidewalk overlay zone, so we have the option to either connect to existing sidewalks or to pay a fee.
No sidewalks to connect to.
Yeah, there's no sidewalks to connect to, so we've got to kind of work through those details. But yes, that's on our list of things to do. Thank you.
I have heard no discussion of a contract zone. Is that the case?
No.
Okay. How about any trails? I know the Recreation Committee, Commission, they're always asking about any trails that might cross the area, and will the public be allowed to access any?
I saw the Conservation Commission's questions about that. I think that's certainly something I'll have a discussion with the applicants about. It sounds like there aren't any existing trails on this piece, but it sounds like there could be some to the west of this. I think the Conservation Commission was looking for a trail on the kind of that western border. Unfortunately, we've got some units pretty close to that. I think putting a trail in the backyard of that may be a bit problematic, but I think I'll talk to the applicant and see what there are available for a trail connection.
Okay, I understand that. In the future, I'd like to see some renderings of what these units are going to look like.
Yeah, we submitted some renderings, but I'm happy to bring those to the meeting if you guys would like. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Did you submit them that we could see, or are they? Oh.
Yep. Yep. They're in the packet that we gave you guys.
Oh, I
Yep.
must have missed it.
Yep.
And then, sorry about that.
No worries.
I guess the last question I really have is, I know one of the key aspects of this project is you bring in water, and which is a real benefit. You said you're going to run that water down, you're going to go down Newton.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So to the folks on Newton, the opportunity will be there so they could tie in to public water.
Correct.
What about the folks on Shirley?
So we're running the water down Newton through our development to the end of where we tie into Shirley.
Yeah.
So we haven't
So if I
We
were-
haven't gone through the approval process with the water district yet. That's another step that we need to take. Where that conversation is going to go when we go to the water district and present what we've proposed, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll come back to what is a, 102 units, it's a benefit to the developer, it's a benefit to those people living there. What is the benefit to the town of Gorham? Certainly you bringing water and participating in the project that would bring water down to South Gorham is huge. It can't be understated. But to folks who are going to have to put up with the traffic on Shirley and the interruption to their lives, boy, it'd be nice if there's a way that they can cost effectively tie in. And that may be a bigger question than this development, but I'm just raising it. Because certainly if I lived on Shirley, that'd be something I'd be very interested in. With that, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Mr. Delaney?
Can you, going back to the septic design, I'm seeing several tanks spread across the proposed subdivision. Would having 7 tanks close together, would that be considered a clustered septic? Or 4 together, or 3 within close proximity?
So the town has a prohibition on clustered systems. These would not be considered clustered systems
Exactly
because
why I'm
each individual building has its own system. So they'd have their own distribution tank and septic leach field. If those were to be combined, then they would be considered clustered systems.
So having them in close proximity.
As long as they're separate, my understanding is no, they would not be considered clustered systems.
Sure.
Ms. Nichols?
I do have a question. Are you done?
Yep, I'm done. Thank you.
On that map, if you could put this back up on the screen for a minute, the map that's up here on the, see, where's north? I think it's on the west end or south end, where I'm kind of wondering if there can be another connection from that street coming down.
Yeah, that was one item we talked about with staff was to
There you go.
have a connection here to one of the abutting parcels. Is that the area you're talking about?
That, and then up from there, go up to the, in between those next two, right, nope, you passed it, right in there. So that this was a square.
Oh, I see here.
Yeah.
I see.
So that we kept with that block, so that down that road, you're not having a dead end down there. And if that turned and connected down to, I guess those are not really named roads.
Yeah, I can certainly look into that to see if we could, I don't have the grading here in front of me to see what the grades are in there, but I can take a look at that for you, sure.
And then the hammerhead down from that where you had mentioned, is that the hammerhead that's going to be removed?
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ms. Nichols?
No, thank you.
Thank you. For the town engineer, back to our discussion about septic, because I was reading a comment from Wright Pierce that any septic that is treating more than 2 residences is considered, is prohibited? Considered a cluster? Is that true?
So that's an old comment back from 2023 from Wright Pierce. Since then, we have made the determination that the 3 units as part of a single building don't qualify as separate residences. So they, and we have done that elsewhere in the town. So they aren't considered a clustered system if they go to one system.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Just for the, it does say 2023, okay. I didn't see the date. Thank you.
No problem.
But that's an important clarification, so
Correct.
thank you. Sewage and traffic. Those were the issues during the site walk.
Yep.
Those were the issues in the past plan. I think those are also the remaining big issues.
Yep.
At least for the residents and for the board, from what I've heard from the comments. I also don't know if the board would want to consider another site walk. I mean, I know that the board's changed quite a bit, and there are some folks that haven't been on that, so.
There are at least 3 people that didn't make it to that sidewalk.
Correct. So if that's something that you're interested in, certainly would entertain that. So maybe we'll get feedback from the rest of the board and because they all get, this is a big plan, and I think we want the whole board to be involved. I know we have 2 members who aren't here, but this will help get them read in on the plan as well.
It would be helpful to go back out if there were some stakes in the ground. You know,
Could you give me some direction of what you guys would like to see? I'd be happy to
you know,
make sure
if
we
you
have that.
If we were moving forward and had like the center line of the streets or something like that. It'd be helpful.
And do you know was it an intent to go for a waiver on the Class A soil?
It was not, no.
Okay, thank you.
We're certainly, we're in the process of providing that information.
I think
so.
I think the board would be in favor of seeing the Class A. So.
Yep.
And
I
yes.
have one other question, just to clarify, because the question came up, one of the residents, that the traffic study was done on the 102 units and not on the 65 units?
Yes.
The number of 48, an estimate of 45 and 53 cars, that was based on 102 units?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I can help clarify on that. So Barton and LaJudas, the town's third-party traffic review engineers, had reviewed a previous version of the proposed development, and so that's what's included there. And we'd most likely look for them to review the updated development plan to provide comments. I'd like to check to see if he has anything further on that.
So we should be looking for new information.
Correct. Very likely, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions from the board?
Just to clarify,
Yes.
do you want us to, staff to reach out to schedule the site walk, or is that something you want to confer more about before we?
No, I think we have enough consensus here that we'd like to see a sidewalk.
Okay, so we'll help coordinate that.
Yes, please.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Please.
Nice job. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you. Thank you to the board. How we doing? Doing okay?
One more on us.
Sorry?
One more on us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we are again. Item 4, public hearing, master plan review. Triano, Gorham Fairways Master Plan, a request for approval of a phased master plan for a mixed-use development on 170 plus or minus acres. The property is located on McClellan Road on map 8, lot 41, map 7, lot 18, lot 6, lot 7, and lot 8. Zone contract zone and South Gorham Crossroads. The applicant is represented by Dan Riley, PE, of Sebago Techniques. Would someone from the planning department like to kick this off, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So this is the second time application for master plan review on the site's been before the board. There was a previous concept that was brought before the board in 2024 that was different in scope from the concept before you tonight. The previous version included only areas on the north side of McClellan Road. Since that time, the applicants have obtained a contract zone that was approved in February of this year. The contract zone is larger in scope and includes areas on both the north and south side of McClellan Road. The contract zone also includes a concept plan, which is exactly that. It's a conceptual So what they're looking for tonight is a review of a more detailed master plan for development of the site over multiple phases. So it includes multiple phases on the south side of McClellan Road, as well as on the north side over a many-year period. The general notes that we've asked for that there be a review of the differences between what was included in the contract zone conceptual plan and the plan before you this evening. Additional information, the site plan and subdivision ordinances apply to this proposal. So if anything in this master plan would still require additional reviews for traffic, environmental impacts, zoning, compliance with zoning, etc. So it would still require site plan and subdivision review for each phase of the proposal. And some additional notes, underground utilities are required. It is in the pedestrian overlay district. There's some additional comments in the review memo. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Damon. Good evening, Mr. Riley.
Good evening. Oh, thank you. My name's Dan Riley. I'm an engineer with Sebago Technics. We're here with Nick Troiano for the applicant is here if there's any questions. I think Damon summarized some of the reasons that we're here tonight. But we are here tonight asking for approval of a revised master plan for the Gorham Fairways project. As Damon recognized, the project was last before you in March of 2024 for a master, when you approved a master plan for the north side of the project. Subsequent to that, the board saw a revised concept as part of the contract zone process. So a contract zone was approved in March of 2025 that encompassed the areas that are shown on the screen here. And this application for master plan is a necessary part of any multi-phase project in the South Gorham Crossroads District. And the master plan now includes the entire area encompassed by the contract zone, whereas previously the applicant had acquired rights to develop the property in pieces. When they secured the full project, they pursued the contract zone, and as a result of that, we really wanted to, it presented an opportunity to kind of re-envision how the project was going to be put together. You'll recall that the master plan concept was for the north side of the street, had a certain arrangement of properties, and given that the project as a whole, the land area had increased, we thought it was a worthwhile exercise to look at how the project might function as a whole now that both sides of the street would be developed. So a couple of the things, and I'll get into some of the changes that were made there, but it did present some opportunities to remain responsive to the goals of the South Gorham Crossroads District that looks for a high-density, multi-unit development, so we've been able to achieve that. We've made some revisions to the arrangement of the project to try to get some of the commercial components more central to the overall project. And throughout this, though, we've been consistent with the contract zone provisions, and I think most in particular is the limitation on the number of single-family residences. In the contract zone, the number of single-family lots that can be developed as part of the plan was capped at 8% of the total multifamily unit count. So we've remained consistent with that, with some of the rearrangement and redesign that we're proposing. And I think the final piece that's important to state right up front is that in the master plan that was reviewed with the contract zone, there was a significant area of conservation land, primarily around the Strawwater River. That all remains in the plan, the same as what you've seen before. All the open space that's going to be shown in the plan that you'll see, you'll recall that in the contract zone, there's a a provision that any open space that's created as part of a site plan or subdivision approval, that the town has basically the first right of refusal to accept that land as public open space if they choose to. And so those provisions are all consistent and remain part of the plan going forward. So the plan that I have here next to me and on the screen outlines the current proposal. In general, it's arranged similar to what you saw in the contract zone discussion. The colors on the plan represent the different components, where the yellow represents the single-family lots that are proposed in the area along the south side of the property. The orange rectangular structures represent apartment buildings. The reddish structures, similar to what we talked about previously, are multi-story condominium buildings with multiple floors. All of the apartments in those multi-floor condominium buildings and the commercial and mixed-use condominium buildings that are in blue are all proposed as a minimum of 3 stories and potentially 4 stories, depending on the final design. So any of those multi-family residential structures are multi-story structures. The purple townhouse units that you see sort of in the upper part of the site, in the northern part of the site here, are all 3-plex townhouse units, very similar to the applicant's project that was approved last year, the condominium development that's in this area of the site here, similar design to what you saw previously. And those have been arranged in the areas of the site where the terrain and some of the natural resource restrictions call for a smaller, narrower footprint without the expansive parking that a larger multifamily development would require. A couple other items to note on the plan. Moving down through the legend and the different types of uses, the blue, the 2 shaded blue represent either commercial buildings or a mixed-use commercial condominium structure where you'd have commercial uses on the ground floor with condominium units above. So the main change that you may see from the previous plan are, if you recall, the last master plan where we were looking at just the north side of the property had most of the commercial development focused down at the east end of the property near this location. It was kind of responsive to the terrain, some of the restrictions that are there, but really was related to the scale of the development, which was only looking at this portion of the site. We thought it was important as the site was looked more holistically with the acquisition of the southern piece of the property, to try to focus some of that commercial and mixed-use commercial buildings more centrally to the overall land mass of the property. For context, the total property that's shaded here, that's part of the contract zone, is about 155 acres, with about 55 of that on the north side, about 100 on the south side. So in the arrangement that's similar to what you saw when we talked about the contract zone, the commercial development has been focused here. The limited number of single-family residential lots are focused on the west side. These units, the residential lots, you'll recall, we did relocate what was planned at one time to be potentially single-family lots up in this area of the site. We've consolidated those all together so that the single-family component is unified in one location. Some of the other items you see on the plan, the turquoise areas are the areas that are located or proposed for our stormwater management. That's part of the requirements of the master plan, is to identify those locations. The project will have to go through the site location development review from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, traffic permitting through the Maine DOT. But the master plan approval is a step that's outlined in the ordinance as sort of the first step before we can come back to you with even a preliminary plan for the subdivision. But our approach to the stormwater management really is going to be a dispersed system. There's going to be some components of some larger facilities where the space allows, particularly on the south side of the site, to meet the volume and the treatment requirements that the state standards apply. But we expect there'll be some other components further up in the development, either underground systems or some tree filter, low impact development techniques that are applicable to those areas of the site. Will be part of that program. And similarly, on the north side of the site, we've identified areas based on the terrain where we think the stormwater management for that future phase will be addressed. The plan does note some phasing of the project, and you may recall from the contract zone discussion that the purpose and the need to construct the single-family residential lots, and particularly to construct them in the early phases of the project, are to allow for funding to pay for the off-site sewer and water extension that needs to come to the project. And so when we present the plan and we talk to you, and when we come back to you for preliminary approval with a preliminary plan, the phasing generally has shifted from what was originally just going to be on the north side to the first few phases of the project are going to be on the south side of the project, where the first phase would encompass the residential development, second phase, apartments fronting along McCullen Road, third phase, including some of the mixed use and commercial buildings at the center of the site, and phases 4 and 5 being an additional apartments on the south side of the project. Following that, there'll be a similar number of phases for the north side. The specific sequence of how that north side development hasn't been fully developed. It is a number of years out. You can imagine that the build-out timeline here will be extended just based on the size of the project and the time it takes for approvals and for construction. Shown on the plan are a number of conceptual open space paths or paths through the open space. As we talked about, the green area at the corner is 20 acres of conservation land that generally represents the floodplain of the Stroudwater River and all the land to the south of it. Very likely that may expand further towards the project. We wanted to be conservative at the master plan level to what we knew we could dedicate, but we would expect that some of that land may move up towards the development of that. But that's conservation space where it's set aside for development, from any kind of development. The other lighter green areas here, in this area here where the sledding hill is, are all intended to be shown on the preliminary plan as open space parcels. Like we talked about in the contract zone, the town has the right to accept those as public open space, but it's the applicant's intent to keep those spaces, except for the areas immediately around the building, available to the public and accessible from parking areas either in the commercial segment of the site or along the roads that abut that within the development. And those will all be spelled out in the preliminary plan that'll be open to the public. And it's certainly the applicant's intent, since the north side of the project is a number of years off, that it is private property, but it's been enjoyed by the public. It is their intent to allow that to continue until such time as that project ultimately develops. So we're a number of years out with that, but there's no intention to restrict that, any access to that until construction needs to begin at that section. There's a graphic here if you have questions when we get to. I do have some blown up, and on the back side of this, a little more detail of the south and north side of the project that we can talk about, any kind of questions. We did want to talk a little bit as we talked about moving the commercial, or the primary commercial component. There are some commercial pieces throughout the project, but the primary commercial center to more centrally located to the overall project. One of the reasons for that is we kind of recognize that based on the terrain and where some of the development wants to occur, particularly on the north side, that it really lended itself to having kind of two centers within the project. And when we get to preliminary design for the north side of the project, one of the features that we really felt was important was to have a bit more sense of entry to the project site here. So we're expecting a wider boulevard entrance to come into what will be primarily higher density multifamily development centered around a village green or a public open space at the center that's available it'll be open to the public, but certainly in the middle of a larger development for the enjoyment of the people that live in some of the higher density residential uses. And as we looked at the layout, one of the provisions that was approved in the contract zone was some revisions to the block length standards that's in the South Quorum Crossroads District. And I'm sorry, my image here put the label right where a road had been, but we were trying to take the opportunity to create some more green space and create some more walkable areas with green space around them rather than just sidewalks alongside of a road, sort of for internal circulation within that project. Again, the turquoise areas are areas that we have for potential storm drainage. The dots are not designed for open space up at the north end of the site. We're looking to try to maintain some of the existing cart paths from the golf course, but there'll certainly be a network of walking trails throughout the project site for the enjoyment of the people that are residents here and open to the public. The layout of that will be determined in the preliminary plans when we get to those phases. Some of the other amenities areas, there will be some community amenity space here for residents on the north side and some community amenity space in the location of the existing clubhouse for the country club. That's not necessarily restricted to the development. If there's a commercial operation, a gym, a daycare, something like that that can fit in those in the program in that building, that'll certainly be something that's considered. A couple areas in the site we've identified for potential dog parks for the use of the residents or the public, sort of situated in areas where they'd be accessible, where people could find a place to park. One of the questions that came up that we sent along to the staff was a comparison from the program standpoint of the plan you saw as part of the contract zone versus the proposed master plan. Essentially, the changes are summarized here on the screen. When we went through the contract zone process, that concept plan was comprised of 824 multifamily units, between 60 and 76,000 square feet of commercial space, 14 which were identified as a mixed-use live-work residential unit, which would have a commercial space, but also essentially a single residential unit within the one building. And 64 single-family residential units, which was derived as being 8% of the 824 multifamily. And it included 20 acres, approximately, a minimum of conservation land. The proposed master plan, primarily because of just some of the arrangement we did and some efficiency that we can do within this part of the site, and a couple other changes, the total number of multifamily units is now proposed at 938. That's about a 12% increase. The commercial component, as it's defined right now, is right in the range of what was anticipated in the master plan. The live-work units have been eliminated from the plan, and so the total combined number of those single residential structures goes from 84 total. If you took the single-family residential units and live-work units together, are now reduced down to 75 single-family lots in that first phase of the project, and that 75 unit is also with the 8% that was of the multifamily units as was outlined in the contract zone. I have some more slides, or I can do that, but I thought I'd pause here, take what questions you have, and hear from the public and get to your questions.
Any questions to Mr. Riley? As previously announced, it's going to be a public hearing, so we'll get back to you in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If you would like to speak in favor of this project, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Harold Hawks, McClellan Road and Brackett Road. This is a great project. It's so close to everything, the mall, the airport. It's a well-thought-out project. I'm very disappointed with the town of Gorham that they don't help the developers down here with water and sewer. Now, water is more than just drinking water. It's fire hydrants for the whole neighborhood, the whole road. If Chief Fickett was here, he'd tell you that it's very important. It's really too bad that the town can't help the developers on this area and the previous developer on sewer and water. I don't know that the town's done anything on sewer and water in the last few years. It's pretty bad. You're wasting all your money on that stupid industrial park folly. And,
please keep your comments in favor of this project.
All right, Jim. And but it's really disappointing that you don't do something for these developers on sewer and water. It's too bad. It's a great development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of this project, please? Is there anyone that would like to speak against this project? Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. And last but not least, is there anyone that would like to just talk about this project one way or the other? Please approach the podium, speak, give us your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. I will close the public hearing. Thank you. Mr. Riley, members of the board, any questions? Please, Mr. Walsh.
Chair, my first question to staff, and then get to Mr. Riley. The master plan that we're being asked to approve tonight. One is it, if the planning board approves it, is it then approved by the town council, or is there just a planning board function?
This is just a planning board function.
Okay. And is this plan considered conceptual, or is this truly part of, in other words, it has to be amended? I'm trying to get down to what is the significance of this document? Is it a guiding document, or is it a conceptual document? What is the significance of approving this document?
Would you like to go?
Sure. Well, yes, Mr. Chair.
If I can chime in. I had a similar question, because we had contract zone document that we reviewed, and I recall something like 47 house lots on the south, maybe 12 on the north, for a total of 57. So we get this fantastic drawing. It's already been recorded by the Registry of Deeds. So I went to planning department this morning, and I'm a little bit of heartburn, saying, okay, now we have no house lots on the north side. Are we starting from scratch again? Your turn. Thank you.
Yes.
We asked for a legal opinion.
That is an excellent question. We have run this by the town attorney, and
good.
and so the gist of it basically is that if what they're proposing is consistent with the text of the contract zone, then that is the most essential thing that the board should be looking at. That the plan that was in, that accompanied the contract zone is conceptual. So what we have here tonight is a more detailed plan that would then guide the rest of the development at the site. Does that get at it, Carol? No.
It does.
Okay.
And in fact, if they find that they need to tweak it along the way and come back for amendments and then record those amendments, they could in fact do that.
Okay, that you just answered my next question. So as the project progresses and things change, which they will, they have to keep this has to be kept up to date. So does that mean that the contract zone has to be updated to reflect this? Because in the contract zone speaks, about 824 multifamily units, and obviously Dan's already spoken, the current plan is more. So will these have to be kept in sync?
It does say approximately 824.
Approximately to 824 to 938. That's big jump. I don't consider that approximate.
And that is why we have you as the planning board to make these determinations where there are words like approximately.
Yeah.
I think that's an engineering term, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, Dan, do you have to take it back to the town council to update? I mean, it just may be a matter of updating the contract zone.
So I don't think we do. So you're certainly correct that when you present a master plan, you present a concept plan. The provisions and the way that working with the staff and working through the process with the council, I think it was recognized that the council's action essentially reestablishes some of the zoning for the project. And what the primary one was, it allowed a use to be allowed in the South Gorham contract that's not globally allowed in the South Gorham contract, South Gorham Crossroads District, to be allowed on this particular property because of the benefit that the water and sewer provided. We had some discussions with the staff throughout that about how precise that needs to be, and again, it is approximate. But I think the thinking on that is that the council would take action on the things that are within its purview, which is sort of establishing zoning, but without taking away the planning board's ability to review a plan sort of on its merits in response to the terrain, in response to the overall scheme of the development. So there's a balance there between allowing you to evaluate all the things that the planning board reviews without having to go back to the council. I think that the town's attorney came back, Carol sent us or provided us some correspondence from the attorney today that said, I think the planning board can review this project without the need for an amendment to the contract zone agreement. The master plan is meant to be conceptual, and the contract zone agreement's language appears to anticipate amendments to the master plan occurring over time. But that said, the master plan does control certain aspects of the contract zone, most importantly, the maximum number of 1 and 2 family dwellings that can be constructed, so long as the eventual build-out that is approved remains compliant with the entire contract zone, and as long as the proposed project complies with all provisions of the CZA, which it appears to, I don't have any concerns. And so when we talked about this and worked out with the staff and the town manager and ultimately in the council, the provision of the number of units, particularly the single-family units that were of most concern, the measure of that was the percentage of how many could be allowed as a percentage of the multifamily development. And I think it was recognized that the language of the South Gorham Crossroads District really was created for the purpose of maximizing density of residential and focusing in this area, as stated in some of the pieces in the memo. And so we've tried to stay true to that requirement, but also true to the limitations that are imposed on the contract zone. I think the town's attorney has determined that we wouldn't necessarily need to go back to the council for that.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation. I'll just state this just as, I don't know, call it advice or just an opinion. Maybe an informed opinion is better. But if I switch to one of my other hats I'm currently wearing, I'm working with a developer as a president of a condo association, working with the conditions of a 22-year-old contract zone that you're very familiar with. And it's hard, looking back through all the history and trying to pick things up to see is everything in compliance, becomes difficult. So my thought is keep them as consistent and in sync as possible so that a person 22 years down the line maybe will better understand it and make sure it's being applied properly.
Really.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have just a couple more if you want me to run down through? Sure. And thanks for breaking down the phasing, but the town attorney also said in some of the other comments that it needs to be commercial, should be commercial in phase 1, yet we don't see that. What's your take on that and how you respond to that?
So I think that is a similar comment that we heard when the first phase project master plan went forward for the north side. I think that is not required any longer because one of the provisions of the contract zone was specific to that the residential units in this development are not subject to the growth ordinance. So that was a provision that got written into the contract zone.
Okay. Okay, and then in looking at the diagram, when I look at just by the Village Green area on the north side, you do have one block there that looks like it's in blue. Is that a commercial building that's in that phase?
Here.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a commercial use. I think that's planned as generally as some amenity space for the development. There's a swimming pool, a community area there, but some space within that building could be available to lease through a third-party outside vendor for a use that was compatible with that, a gym, daycare, or something along those lines. There'd be space available for that.
Sure. And then lastly, my biggest question, I think it's one that most of the neighbors would be asking, is what is the current discussion and thinking of potential need for offsite improvements on the roads, McClellan, Brackett, as the approach and the getaway from this site?
Yeah, so the project will absolutely be subject to a Maine Department of Transportation traffic movement permit, as you heard from earlier applications. Whenever your project trips more than 100 peak hour trips, you need to do that. I would expect at full build-out, this is probably more than 200 peak hour trips. And so the process for that, it is a kind of a 3-part process with a 7-part application where you submit the first 6 pieces of your application that look at existing conditions and the traffic that your project is projected to develop both in those peak hours. That initially is submitted. Then there's a scoping meeting that's held between the applicant, the Maine Department of Transportation, the town, that reviews all of that information, clarifies questions, and then that establishes, based on the traffic that's actually being generated when everyone agrees to that, what the study area is that your traffic assessment needs to address. And it looks out, what it would do in a project like this is you would have to, there would be some initial counts that would be done to determine what the general traffic pattern in the area is. Then you would apply your projected trips to that, and you work it through the street network as traffic disperses. And when you reach a certain threshold, you need to study that intersection for improvements and function. And then eventually, as the traffic disperses, you reach a point where you no longer need to study. So that meeting establishes the study area. It establishes which intersections need to be studied in detail. And with that, then the traffic study is performed. That includes all the projections, turning movements, timing of signals, and what comes out of that are any potential improvements that need to be made, both from a vehicle traffic movement standpoint, but also looks at pedestrian conditions in that study area and those type of safety improvements. It looks at known high crash locations, like where there's a history of crashes that you need to address that. So coming out of that, and as a condition of that permit, which can be almost a year, can be up to a year to do all that and review it, there would be a series of off-site improvements that need to be included in the permit. And so when DOT issues their permit, it's with conditions that certain off-site improvements be done to ensure that traffic impacts are mitigated. That could include signals. It could include a signal here. It could include a signal at the other end. It could include other intersections further out, but that all gets determined through that process.
So just, that's a lot of process, and you'll lose a lot of people in the public on that answer because of the complexity of it. What I'd ask is because this question is just going to come up time and time and time again, is really make it transparent, make it understandable, timing, estimated timing, when does that, it probably doesn't apply to phase 1. When does it apply? When? And
good question.
Just be prepared, please, to answer those questions down the line and get that as transparent and as easy for people to understand as possible, because it's going to be the number one question.
Yeah, I think I can answer that succinctly. So it will get triggered with the first phase of the project. In the past, DOT would often outline improvements, and there'd be a timeline as when you reach certain thresholds, you do those improvements. They've moved away from that. And so what they've done is they've put shorter windows on their permits. So your permit is, you have to start within 5 years. I think you have 7 years to finish. So you basically get permitted for what you're going to build in that 7-year window. And they require whatever off-site improvements that are done or that are required by that study to be completed and constructed as part of the first phase of the project. Because they found that as especially phase projects go forward, they don't have a good mechanism to ensure that those things are getting done in the timeline that they're required to, and it would fall on the towns to have to enforce that. So they've kind of moved away from those longer range phased improvement permits. So that's one of the hurdles for the project, and some of the reason for the contract zone is that it does put more upfront cost on, but it also provides some surety that for whatever's permitted, that the improvements that are required for that get done as part of that first phase.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Anyone else? Excuse me, anyone else? Questions, concerns? Anything of the planning department?
I do have one question. I'm not familiar with the golf course, but sometimes golf courses have a way to get from one side of a road, busy road, to another. Is it like an underpass or something? Is there any way to connect existing way to connect the north and south?
Yeah, there's no tunnels under the road right
There's
now.
nothing.
So we would likely have a crossing at, one of the intersections would be the mechanism for that.
That's all good right now.
Mr. Delaney, Ms. Nichols, any questions, any comments? Would someone like to propose a motion, please? We have it on the back of page 10.
Mr. Chair,
Please, Colonel.
I'd like to move to grant Gorham Fairways Master Plan approval for a mixed-use project located on 170 acres on McClellan Road on map 8, lot 41, map 7, lot 18, lot 6, lot 7, and lot 8, zone contract zone, and South Gorham Crossroads, based on the findings of facts as written by the town planner.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second?
Dave Walsh, second.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I think this has been a very, very, very thorough review. Updated drawings, numbered, everything seems to be in order. I will vote to approve this. Is there anyone else that would like to chime in? All righty, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Members of the board, I understand that there is a time constraint perhaps for the school department. We have to discuss this business. We can't delay because of contractual obligations, et cetera. I'm going to ask the board to please consider the following. I would like to take items 8, 7, 6, and 5 and reverse them so that I would like item 8 to now become item 5. I would like item 7 to become item 6. I would like item 6 to become item 7, and I would like item 5 to become item 8. Just reverse order of those last 4 items. Would someone?
So moved.
Thank you, Colonel.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms.
Barbara,
Nichols.
second.
Everyone understand? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, so planning, we understand what we just did, jumping through a few hoops. Item 8 is now item 5. Would someone like to introduce this?
Certainly. Mr. Chair, this is the third time this application has come before the planning board. It was before the board first for sketch plan review back in September of 2022. It was back before the board for site plan amendment approval, where there was a public hearing on April 7th of 2025. At that time, there were a number of staff and peer review comments that were received. The applicant's since gone back and made significant adjustments to the plan to address those comments. In our review of the amended proposal, we found that they have addressed the bulk of the comments, and they have detailed that in their response to comment memo that was included with the submission. They have, notably, they've significantly redesigned the access ways to address some comments from the town fire department to meet their requirements. There are several, I would categorize as relatively minor engineering related comments that do need to be addressed. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Yakerloff. I apologize. I have not introduced this item. This is now item 5. This is a discussion, site plan amendment, Gorham Town, Town of Gorham, School Department, Gorham High School, a request for approval to expand the Gorham High School kitchen and cafeteria by approximately 100 seats and to add a modular classroom building and 20 additional parking spaces. The modular building will consist of 7 additional classrooms. The property is located at 75 South Street on map 106, lot 47, zoned urban residential. The applicant is represented by Owens McCullough, PE of Sebago Techniques Incorporated. I apologize for this. We're trying to move it along. It was introduced. Mr. McCullough, I apologize. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Owens McCullough, a civil engineer with Sebago Technics. Ooh, that doesn't show up very well, does it?
Zoom extends, no? Is this AutoCAD?
Well, I tried, but it's not cooperating, so maybe I can. I tried to see if I can zoom in here.
So you want to bring that forward, you want to get the background out. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it's just not showing up like I had hoped, so I do apologize for that. As Damon indicated, we've been in front of the board a couple of times now. Actually, I think this will be the third time. The last meeting, I introduced the project, again, took you through the whole thing, so in the interest of time, unless the board wants me to, I'll just sort of focus on what we've done since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, we really just fine-tuned and addressed the review comments. Of primary interest was the fire chief asked for us to have a 20-foot wide access way that would get to the back, that would be able to better access the back of the existing modulars, which we did. I've sent the plan to the fire chief, got an email back that he's satisfied with that, and I think staff has had that same correspondence. So that would go to the back. Because of that, if you remember the last time we had an under-drained soil filter that we were going to use for stormwater management, but with adding the paved driveway to the back, we're just frankly running out of space. So we went to an underground system. It makes that area much more usable. I was a little concerned about snow getting plowed into an under-drained soil filter, which you really don't want to do. So going to a completely underground chambered system solves all of that, provides a nice level area. We're not dealing with the logistics of an under-drained soil filter. That has been reviewed by the town's peer reviewer. There was a couple of very minor responses, and Carol, I've already written a letter back because I just got them last week, and it'll be coming your way. They're pretty simple, so those will be addressed. The other thing we did was, at the request of the recreation director, would provide a paved access way, and we'll cut a gate into the tennis courts, which made a lot of sense because in after hours, I'm sure people will want to park in those spaces and will want to walk over and use the tennis courts. Made perfect sense. We did that. The other thing we did was the fire chief, the whole thing slid about 4 feet to the west. We needed to provide at least 20 feet of access back into this space here. We now have 21 feet of width to that area. Some minor adjustments to the landscaping that we did, and really those were the main items. I don't think there was a lot else that we needed to do to it. Other than that, it stays exactly the same as we talked about at the last meeting. Oh, Chuck, I can't forget your comment. So at the last meeting, one of the things was the staff, because of a sidewalk interconnectivity request. There's sidewalks all along the school. They connect around down Ballpark Drive, and around the side of the school there was a desire to put a sidewalk in here because at some point the town is likely to put sidewalks in down Morrill Avenue, so they wanted to have that interconnection ready to go. We've agreed to do that, and that is also shown on the plan. And with that, those were the changes. I promise to be quick.
Thank you. Members of the board? I have a few, if you don't mind.
I would appreciate that. I'd expect nothing less.
Well, right out of the gate, cover sheet G-001.
Yes.
Grand Hayes Associates.
Yes.
Architect is spelled wrong.
Architectural. Oh, yeah, look at that. Thank you.
No worries. Spell check is in AutoCAD. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sheet G-002. Fabulous with all these notes. I don't see anything, and it may be outside of this purview. I don't see any reference to any specific notes, specifications. Will the other engineering groups, electrical, we're going to use certain type of conduit, blah, 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 et cetera, et
Yes.
cetera. Any reference to any specs whatsoever, or are they all covered within these notes?
No, there will be a complete bid spec document that will have all the different divisions and sections when it goes to bid.
Thank you, perfect. If you move on, please, to sheet C-100.
Yes.
Under the demolition plan keynotes, there's two 24s. So the last one, the fake rock, is item 25.
Oh, correct.
And I'm just curious, it says a fake rock with irrigation underneath to protect irrigation in place and relocate rock as necessary. How big a rock are we talking about here? I mean,
It's a plastic cover that goes over the irrigation line that goes to the...
Is a plow truck going to hit this thing?
No, it's back.
I'm going to ask Mr. Deering about that.
Well, you can, Norm, it's been there for years, right?
It's there now? Okay. Well, good enough. I never noticed it, so it must be okay. Thank you. If we go to sheet C-101, please.
Okay.
There's a duplication of text in there. It says required one parking space for each adult employee plus 15 spaces for each 100 students or major fraction thereof of total enrollment. I'm not sure that wording is right.
Required one parking space for each adult employee plus 15 spaces for each 100 students or major fraction thereof of total enrollment. I almost think that came right out of the ordinance, but the requirement, if I break it down, we have 20 new spaces and 7.5 spaces are required based upon a staff addition of 2 adults. So we have to have 1 space per 2 adults and 37 students, which if you do the fractional number of that comes out to 6 required spaces.
Yeah, no, the math was okay. It was the wording. I wasn't in sync with the wording.
Jim, we'll still check that with the ordinance. I think
Okay.
I copied that right out of the ordinance, but I'll double check it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I think we're going way down in the end. I'm sorry, sheet. I'm not sure if you have it in your packet, sheet A2?
A2. A10.
These are dimensional information
have
on the
A2, yes.
on the modular classes. So if you look at, we don't have this drawing is not zoned. So I'm looking, see where it says elevation C, drawing A10? Okay, so along that edge, you have a dimension of 108 feet. The extension line is in the wrong location. I believe that's 111 feet. It should go up 3 feet.
Yes, you are correct.
You see that?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, if we're going to send out drawings, we want to make sure they're okay.
Thank you.
No.
That's what we get for picking up and shifting drawings.
I know the deal. Trust me, I know this so well.
I appreciate the review.
That's all I could find, and I was wide awake, I was doing it. So thank you for your excellent work on all of this.
Thank you.
Please, members of the board, I'm sorry for taking up so much time. If you send me AutoCAD versions next time, I'll go even deeper.
I'm
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I have an office for you, Jim.
I move to grant Gorham School District's request for site plan approval for construction of a 13,366-foot building addition with parking and associated infrastructure at Gorham High School, located on map 106, lot 45, under the urban residential zoning district, based on findings of fact and conditions of approval as written by the town planner.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second?
Second, Dave Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I'm going to interject here for a minute. Mr. Justice, we talked about this before. I don't know if it's an issue. I know the tennis courts. Has that whole issue ever been resolved? Do we not have to worry about it for this project? Is the corner of that...
Not for this project.
All right, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have to worry about it at all.
Not for this project.
Would you mind explaining it?
You better come up, Norm, because I think I know what this is, but
This is part of a grant, and it's pretty deep.
I just would need clarification on your question then. 'cause
So years ago, a portion of this land was developed with a grant. And we were trying to do something when we were talking about remodeling the high school.
Right.
And there was a kibosh on that. We could not do that because that is outside our purview. Legally, we had to go, I believe, the federal government.
Right. Yeah.
So what I was asking Norm, Mr. Justice, was there's a corner of the tennis courts that is part of this. And although the tennis courts aren't part of this, I would not want any part of that land to interfere with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so the tennis courts that exist now don't even, aren't even in the location that was originally approved as the Parks and Conservation.
Okay.
So that's not an issue.
Okay. I don't mean to belabor it. We've
Yeah.
had a motion and a second. Thank you for the clarification. I just didn't want to have someone come back and say, why didn't you guys think of this? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Dyke, we're going to break for 5 minutes, please. And then, Mr. Alphonse, you're up. 5-minute break, please. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're returning from a recess. This is a planning board meeting, the Gorham Planning Board, Monday evening, June 2nd, 2025. We are taking item 7, and we are now calling it item 6. We're taking things out of order. Item 6 is now a discussion. Private way sketch plan, Michael Stack, 201 Dingley Springs Road. A request for approval to construct an approximately 1,050-foot private way to serve up to 5 single-family house lots. The property is located at 201 Dingley Spring Road on map 76, lot 3, zone suburban residential. The applicant is represented by Peter D'Alfonso, PE of D'Alfonso Engineering. I would ask someone from Planning Department to please kick this off.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. This is the first time this has come before the Planning Board. It is a request for review comments on a private way, again, at 201 Dingley Spring Road. The property currently contains a stream, wetlands, aquifer, and a large amount of forest canopy. The applicant is proposing a 2 to 6 lot dwelling unit private way, individual domestic wells, and subsurface septic systems, pardon me. The applicant has provided a private way plan for your review. Project involves splitting a 19.5 acre lot into 5 lots. 2 lots are going to be retained for daughters, and 2 will be sold outright. That's the plan at this moment. There's a snowmobile trail on the rear of the parcel, so the applicant should show that on the plan and then provide information to the board about if it's going to be relocated or continue on as is in some fashion. The board should review the proposed plan of lot division with the applicant to determine if a subdivision review is necessary. And the reason I say that is because if you show lots on a plan, it looks like a subdivision. So there's 2 ways to deal with that. Remove the lots or put a note on the plan that says this is not an approved subdivision. This is illustration for lots only, but it is not approved as a subdivision as such. With that, I turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We recently had a similar situation where we removed information from a drawing because of that.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. D'Alfonso. Would you like to introduce the project?
Good evening. Sure. I'm going to be basically repeating everything that's already been said, but it is the proposal is for the private way. We're not here to propose that we're doing a subdivision. We believe that we won't be when the project is all built out. The site is located at 201 Dingley Springs Road, and the applicant is Michael Stack, who's here in the audience with us. I'm going to flip this over just because this is on. Okay. The site is presently improved with Michael's home, which is right here. He also has a garage on the site, so the proposed road will pass basically through the garage and stay with the proper setback from the house. What Michael's going to do now is what he proposes to do is move that garage over to lot 2, possibly, or maybe one of the other lots. I did do the density calculations to make sure I was proposing we could fit what Michael wanted on the site. So I think the density calculations came out to 6 lots. We're gonna shoot for 5 down the road. But as I said, right now, the application is for the private way. I believe the stream that Carol was talking about is back in this area back here in the wetlands. And all the development is happening on this side of the wetlands. There will not be any disturbance of wetlands with this project. And that's about all I have, but we're here to answer some questions and get your input, especially on the process and what we should be, proposing at this time. So, thank you.
Pretty straightforward from where I sit. I did hear a recommendation to remove from this drawing the additional
Yes.
lots.
Yes, we did meet with the staff, and I have taken note of that, and when we submit for preliminary approval, we will either remove them or put the note that we've used in the past.
That's the only comment I have. Anyone else? Mr. Walsh?
Just clarification. So what is shown as Lot 5 is basically the back part of the property that includes all the undeveloped land, the
Right,
land
it
that would not be
includes-
developed.
It could be a lot. One of the reasons for showing it that way is that you can only get through there without an NRPA permit with one slim driveway, a 12-foot driveway. So if you want to go back there any further with a road, you would have to get an NRPA permit for it.
Thank you. So Carol, when you were mentioning earlier to take off the drawing, was that the one you were referring to?
It's actually all of the lots,
Oh, okay.
or reduce it under 3, anyway.
Well, that leads me to my question. So this is maybe none of my business, but I'm just more curious. You mentioned that the applicant may move his garage onto Lot 2. In that case, why not have just combine Lot 1 and 2? If he's going to retain it as his own private property.
Well, right now, we're not proposing any lots. So the reason we went through that process was to make sure we could fit with what Michael wanted on the site. And should, when he breaks off a lot, he has to go to, code, and they will make sure he has the right number, the right size lot and all that, frontage area and all that. And then if he gets out there and he's proposing a 6th lot, or proposing to sell it, then it won't sell until we come before you, because
Thank you.
Okay, my understanding from the planning department is that there is no vote needed, just kind of a consensus and feedback. I think.
Yes.
You know what to do?
I believe so.
Are we okay? I don't want to dismiss this too quickly. Anyone else?
We are removing the lots, correct?
Or adding a note. I heard that we could add a note. Would you please reiterate that little language?
Because right now, I see this as a subdivision.
Yeah.
On previous plans, Peter reminded me that there has been a note put on the plan that says this is not an approved subdivision. So it can't be recorded as a subdivision plan, so they would move forward with their plan. If it's executed as they say here, it should be fine. If they start selling the lots to people they're not related to, then they need to come for subdivision.
We all set?
Yep. Very good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delfonso. Nice seeing you again.
Thank you.
Take care. Ladies and gentlemen,
Be the second time I left that.
6, which is now item 7, a public hearing, ordinance amendments, off-street parking, proposed revisions to off-street parking standards found in the Land Use Development Code, Chapter 2, Section 2-2. I'll announce it for the record. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this item? There is no one. Let the record show there was no one in the audience.
Sorry, Kevin.
No disrespect, Mr. Jensen. I don't think you're going to speak to this. So the public hearing is closed. Members of the board, we have been through this. It's been highlighted, read, more read. I've mentioned this at some other groups that I participated with. I don't want to have information overload. This is...
Mr. Chairman,
please,
if I may
Mr. Walsh.
remind you, several of us on the ordinance committee participated in a very lengthy discussion on this. I'm not sure everyone here has been through it.
Part of it.
What's that? So, but I think what I said was, because we talked about bringing it to a full board workshop, but I said, in lieu of doing that, I would be happy to run people through this very quickly if they need it. So I leave that out there. Right. For those who have not been, Bill, you were participated. Rob, you were
there, yes, sir.
Yeah, and Barbara, you were there for part of it because you decided that night you wanted to be part of our committee, which we greatly appreciated.
Just checking on you.
So I think most people have been through this. I can see that, changes were made. The term employee was, on page 2, there was a lot of change. The term employee was used when we talk about workers at a site. They did a nice job changing around the spaces, to make sure that people understand the spaces in a garage are considered a parking space. So a place in a residential garage is considered a parking space per this standard. We eliminated quite a few things, tried to simplify it. Schools, bowling alley, commercial and light industrial uses were removed and can either removed entirely or consolidated with other items. Should be noted that any fractional numbers of parking spaces are rounded up, always. Home occupation was added on page 4. And thank you to staff for the rewording for the perimeter screen discussion that starts on the bottom of page 4, that you've highlighted that it does not apply to residential. I think that was the crux of the changes.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Well said.
Since you introduced it, would you like to make a motion?
Oh, no, you're getting good at it.
Colonel?
Mr. Chair, move to send the proposed Land Use and Development Code amendment to updated parking standards to the Town Council with a recommendation for adoption.
And a second by Dave Walsh.
Mr. Walsh. We've gone through this. It's been taking months, a lot of extra work, a lot of workshop time.
Yeah.
Everyone understand what the intent is? All right. All those in favor?
All in favor?
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, former item 5 is now item 8. Last evening on our agenda. This is a public hearing, ordinance amendments, backlot standards, proposed revisions to backlot standards found in the Land Use and Development Code, Chapter 1, Section 1-1, D8. I look to planning to
Yes,
introduce us,
sir.
please.
This is our never-ending search to make this clearer and clearer and clearer. We added figures twice to make this clearer. There was a intent to have these back lots created from lots that are legally conforming to current standards, and so we have added that so it is hopefully blatantly obvious and clear. So I ask you, if it is not clear to you, please tell us now, and
Hold your peace.
we can edit it so it clearer. And then we have changed up the width requirements to make that more easily understandable. Added it to the figures, included accessory dwelling units spelled out, added a setback from proposed easements to the houses, because people were trying to put the easement 2 inches from the house. That was, if it's not in here, is it allowed? So we're trying to make it even clearer what the intent of this is. And with that, I turn it over to you all.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Again, for the record, there was no one in the council chambers this evening. So no one's going to come forward. I will just close the public hearing. Members of the board. I remember we had a nickname for this driveway.
I'm just disappointed to see that the flag lot reference is gone.
But it was a flagpole?
Flagpole, yeah.
Flagpole?
Some people may not understand it now because they're going to say, is this about a flag lot?
Well, it's all the same if you use different wording in other towns, but this is the wording for this town.
Well done.
This was definitely a group effort.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please. I'm sorry, Colonel. I was falling asleep.
No, I move to send the proposed Land Use and Development Code amendment to clarify provisions for setback and street access for back lots to the town council with a recommendation for adoption.
Colonel, is there a second?
A Walsh, second.
Walsh. Thank you. Everyone understand the intent of this?
Yes, please.
The others, but hopefully it will clarify some things. All those in favor? Mr. Nichols, come on. Are you with us?
I am good.
You still awake? Thank you. Anyone opposed?
I was still having a question, but I found the answer.
And one last motion, please. I apologize.
Business.
We have other business? Is there any other business to come before us? Mr. Walsh?
I have a question. And first of all, good job tonight running this meeting. This could have been, I thought this was going to be a marathon. I just have more of a kind of a policy conceptual question. We had 102 units of over 55 come between us. We had another, 7 units, I can't remember, down the other end, South Street. Given the exception in the growth ordinance, 455 and over, is this something we're just going to continue to see that people pushing, the developers are pushing 55? I mean, obviously it has to be a market, but I mean, we're just finishing up 202 units here in Fresno Knoll, now another 102. We hear in the media that there's a need for workforce housing. Obviously, the golf course and Roby will hopefully address that. But is there, because I think I saw, maybe it was a discussion with one of the councilors, I'm wondering if we've pushed the over 55 too much. Was it you, Bill?
No, but this ties into the exception to growth permits for any reason, but for the mixed-use development, right?
Yeah.
We have exception to growth permits. We have exception to growth permits for 55 and older, and it doesn't give the planning board a chance to review and comment. And I think that I've talked to the town council, and I think that we should have a further discussion and maybe send a letter to the town council reviewing these ordinances or part of the comprehensive plan so that the town gets an opportunity to vote on whether we're going to approve these exceptions to the growth ordinances or not.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
This is the second time it's come up for a different reason, but.
all part of the comprehensive zone. I mean,
Yes.
I'm guessing 10 years ago or whatever, 2016, we weren't thinking that the golf course was going to be sold. I'm thinking, it was a recreational spot and it was perfect. And then,
And maybe we still grant the exception to growth permits. Maybe that's still a reasonable thing to do, but we should at least have a say in it. There should be a discussion and not just.
carte blanche. Yep. Well said.
Anyway,
Would the
that's my
board,
take on it.
would the board want us to draft a letter for review
together.
by the chair?
That would be
Or
great.
a letter or a memo to the town council
That we could discuss.
to discuss this?
Yeah.
Sure.
If I might suggest something, you might want to see what the legislature does with LD 1829. Just a suggestion.
Is it up for vote soon?
Yeah, when is
It got a unanimous report out of the committee,
Subcommittee? Yeah.
which typically means that it will pass. It doesn't mean it necessarily will, but I'd say it's more likely than not. The Maine Association of Planners Policy Committee, which I'm on, has been following this closely. I will say there's a lot of other provisions in that law that would preempt local zoning, 5,000 square foot lots in the growth area where there's water, sewer, a number of other items. So we have to see where this goes. I just suggest maybe if it doesn't pass, but I think, yes, look at.
Give it some time.
What
Worth
happens.
waiting a couple of months. I mean,
Sure.
the session's going to be over in
Very
July
soon.
1st, so.
Yeah, at the latest, I
Right.
think so, yeah. So you may just want to see where that goes and then determine, what kind of direction you want to
Do we keep
suggest
it-
on growth areas.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Do we keep a to-do list?
How do we
So
track?
something in the future, we might go back and look at that, so we don't forget it.
Certainly.
Okay. Colonel?
I have just a brief bit of other business. I've been representing the planning board on the Fiscal Sustainability Committee. The Fiscal Sustainability Committee has voted to release its final report. There were 4 major takeaways or recommendations of a much larger report. But it's encouraging the town to create a fiscal indicators dashboard, which will highlight things and be part of a communications plan to the town with things like average home price and tax rate and school population and things that the town would be interested in and help to educate the town on, or keep the town educated on issues that are likely to come up for a vote in the various elections and bonds, et cetera. The creation of a town and school strategic plan, fiscal strategic plan, so they have a plan going forward. And it's not just year to year, but they have a way to budget in large capital expenses, particularly. I mentioned the communications plan, and then a standing implementation committee made up of school board members and town councilors who now will sit on the same committee on a permanent basis to come up with the implement the other recommendations. So maintain the dashboard, come up with a strategic fiscal plan for the town and school. Other specific goals were to keep the budget increase tied to a range around the CPI. So they have an actual goal that they have to at least stay tethered to. They're going to separate the operational and capital budget from on the school side so that people can see what the operational cost increase is versus the capital cost. And then there was a discussion about indexing impact fees, and I know we've had that conversation here as well. Ephraim stated that he didn't know if that was legal to do that, to index impact fees. So I asked that they look into it, and so that may be something we want to revisit in the future. There was wide support for it among the committee, and so it'll be something that this standing committee hopefully will take up. But those were some of the key takeaways. The report is available, and it'll be published online. But I just wanted to report out since you all tasked me to be a part of that committee.
Good.
A few nights out, huh?
It's good.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh?
And I was going to just update the group on the status of the economic development strategic plan, but since Kevin's here, maybe you can give us the thumbnail speech of where it's at? Yeah, I did say thumbnail.
Kevin Jensen, Economic Development Director. It is up for a vote tomorrow at Town Council to formally put a scheduled workshop with Camoin Associates and North Star Planning on Tuesday, June 17th. So they'll be meeting with Town Council in a workshop. It's open to the public. And we're encouraging the steering committee to attend and others that are interested. So.
Great.
What is the purpose of the meeting, please?
So so the final report has been drafted by Camoin Associates and North Star Planning. So it's gone through a couple iterations, a couple different edits, gone through the steering committee, which Dave is part of. And so now we've got, hopefully there will be one more final version that is delivered to Town Council as that will be the subject of that workshop. And that would be the end of what's turning into more than a 9-month, more like a 12-month project with Camoin and North Star.
Thank you.
And product of one of the uses of this report is going to be hopefully be an input into our next update of the comp plan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yes, Ms. Nichols?
Just a notification, I'm sure everybody here probably knows, but a week from today is the Gorham Open Space and Trails Master Plan Public Workshop. So if anybody's interested in going to that, I know I want to go to that.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
It's in this room, by the
6
way?
to 8.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a short gym. Is it in here?
In here, 6 to 8, next Monday the 9th.
If I can, just upcoming meeting, June 16th, will be with the Buxton Planning Board. So there's a proposed development on the town line between Gorham and Buxton. So the state law requires a joint planning board meeting to review. So we've noticed that meeting. Buxton has noticed it as well. So we are looking at some logistics about whether we can meet in this room because they also have a 7-member board, or we may go into conference room A. We're going to be talking to video team here to make sure that it can be recorded appropriately. And so just stay tuned. We'll let you know which room that will be in.
Will we expect public comment? Or is this between us?
It's a subdivision review, so it doesn't require public hearing, but members of the public, of course, would be welcome to attend, so they could sit around the perimeter of the room.
Sure.
Potentially,
Okay.
so we're looking at some of the logistics there, so just wanted to let you know. There'll also be another item on that agenda, which is a Gorham item, review of a land use code amendment that's proposed, depending on whether it comes out of the town council tomorrow. So we're working to, it's a relatively minor amendment in the Mosher Corner mixed use district. So just a heads up. So there is one Buxton item that's proposed to be on that agenda. So,
Okay.
so there's a few logistics to work out where they don't need to be present for that one. So we'll put the Buxton item first on the agenda, and then the land use item second.
What if we met a half hour earlier to get it out of the way? So,
We do that.
is that possible?
What's the date of that meeting?
Yeah, thank you. What's
June
the-
16th?
June 16th.
We've already advertised for it.
I think we have to stick with the 7 o'clock time because we did
That's for the
already
joint
advertise.
meeting.
Yes, correct.
Can we not make an announcement for a different meeting?
There is a requirement for advertising that. We can check into it, but we may be past the deadline
I think
already.
we are. It's a 14.
Okay, if we are, we are. Okay.
It may be a quick item, too, just so you know. It's so anyway.
Okay,
we'll
that's fine.
provide more information about
That's fine.
it.
That's fine.
Okay. Just wanted to give a heads up.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Colonel Benson?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Mr. Walsh? Thanks to Ben Dyke, thanks to the planning board. Mr. Norton, you haven't had too much to say this evening. Thank you for your participation. Thanks to all the members of the board. I hope Mr. Crisafulli's
Little person.
things are going better for him, and Mr. Frank is having a great time. I believe he's in Maryland. So, thank you all. The meeting is adjourned.